Good morning, I'm Angelo Castro III.
I'm Angela, and we are the Castros.
We bring you the news.
And the views that make you think.
Sometimes we agree.
Sometimes we don't.
This is News and Views.
And here are today's headlines.
Some lawmakers are pushing back against talks of an impeachment complaint against President Bongbong Marcos.
Senator Panfilo Lacson flags alleged pork-linked allocables tied to Senator Amy Marcos in the 2025 budget.
6 people are dead after a landfill collapse in Cebu City as search operations continue.
PBOX warned of increased seismic activity at Mayon volcano with unrest expected to continue for months.
First in the news, some lawmakers are pushing back against talk of an impeachment complaint against President Marcos, stressing that any such move must meet strict constitutional standards. Here's the report.
Senior House leaders say impeachment should not be reduced to political noise or public statements, as claims circulate that a complaint against President Bongbong Marcos may be in the works. Deputy Speaker Paulo Ortega said impeachment is a serious constitutional mechanism that must be grounded on evidence, not speculation or press releases. Ortega added that allegations must be supported by verifiable facts, sworn statements, and credible documentation, warning against using impeachment as a political weapon. Another lawmaker echoed the same view. Adyong stressed that impeachment is a solemn constitutional process requiring discipline and restraint, adding that the House of Representatives remains guided by evidence and due process, not rumor or partisan pressure. Malacanang, meanwhile, dismissed talk of an impeachment move against the president. Presidential Communications Undersecretary Claire Castro said these are unsubstantiated claims and that the president remains focused on governance. Castro added that the administration will not speculate on rumors or political maneuvering and said President Marcos remains committed to delivering results for the Filipino people. Caloocan Representative Edgar Erice earlier said discussions are underway in the House on a possible impeachment move against the president, with February being floated as a possible filing period.
And joining us this morning is the Lanao del Sur 1st District Representative Alonto Adyong. Good morning, Kong. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Ray Castro. Happy New Year to you both.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, Kong.
Yeah, it's good to see you, Kong. But of course, first and foremost, meron po ba talagang naririnig among the House na maaring mag-file ng impeachment complaint laban kay Pangulong Bongbong Marcos?
Actually, it came about from the interview of my good friend, Congressman Erice.
Yes.
Sa ngayon, wala po kaming naririnig. Actually, we just learned about that when one of my colleagues came out in an interview saying that there were some groups who were pushing and then approaching him that could, for these complaints to be endorsed by him. So, in fairness naman kay Congressman Erice, sabi naman niya, he will not endorse such complaint. But apart from that kasi, the issue really is, anybody can really file an impeachment complaint, di ba? Demokrasya tayo eh. But the issue really is, how can you substantiate your claim to attribute, culpable violation of the Constitution, betrayal of public trust, on certain policies or directive of the current president. So yun ang mahirap eh, because that's the only way you can actually convince the House of Representatives to push forward these claims of yours. So filing is one thing, and then producing evidences to support your allegation is another.
Right.
Pero Kong, have you heard of or are you aware of ano yung mga specific charges na ipinupukol kay Pangulong Marcos?
Kaya nga sabi namin, rumor lang ito kasi wala kami naririnig. Wala pa kami nakikita. Sabi namin, it's just probably political noise. If they're ready with their complaints, then they should be ready also to file it. So sa ngayon, sabi ko nga, this all came about from the interview of my good friend, which again, I would like to I'd also like to stress out that he explained that he will not be endorsing any such complaint.
And I think isa sa mga tinitingnan daw po nila na basehan dun sa complaint would be yung pagpapasa ng budget ng 2022, 2023, and of course, this notorious budget na 2025 that dubbed as the most corrupt budget in the Philippine history na, command responsibility because he's the one who signed the budget. So, siya daw yung may responsibilidad doon. Kung
Well,
may mga issue ng korupsyon, napabayaan niya or he's part of it somehow. Yun daw yung mga sinasabi. Kong.
Well, legally, if it's about policy, then I think that's not an issue for an impeachment complaint.
Right.
No, if it's, for example, directive from the president saying that ito sa akin ito yung hatian natin, that is a betrayal of public trust. And there's also a ruling from on the 2025 petition, no, specifically on the transfer of the 60 excess funds from the PhilHealth to the National Treasury. Ang sinabi naman ng Supreme Court doon, there is no culpability on the part of the DOF, no. So, meaning to say, the Supreme Court has already laid out the guidelines that it cannot be again replicated in the same manner that such an excess funds from any GOCCs might be transferred to the National Treasury. But then again, apart from also that, in part of that ruling is also not to find any culpability. So if we talk about the budgeting process, if they're trying to lay down the complaints and attributing it to the previous GAAs that we have approved, then I think it's the burden of proof would lie on the complainant themselves. So they have to specify where in the specific GAAs and where exactly in the line items can the president be charged with an offense as big as constituting a civil offense.
Alright. Of course, ang tinatanong din natin dito kung paano yung magiging proseso, no? While we are also waiting for the, of course, sagot ng Supreme Court doon sa impeachment complaint nga kay Vice President Sara Duterte. Hypothetically, nagkaroon nga po ng impeachment complaint laban kay President Bongbong Marcos, and then of course, biglang mag-expire na rin nung yung period ng 1-year ban nung kay VP Sara. Paano, ano yung magiging dynamics ito sa Congress? Meron bang president before na dalawang impeachment ang dinidinig sa Congress? Tama po ba yun?
Wala. So far, hindi ko naman, magkaedad naman ata kami ni Angelo. So wala ko kami naririnig.
Wala, not in my knowledge, Kong.
not that I know of. And that's the thing that we want to avoid, di ba? Kasi definitely it would hurt not only these two, for example, officers, no? But it would definitely hurt our country economically and many other aspects in our governance. So, kaya nga sinasabi namin, lalo na, you mentioned about the MR, as we're still waiting for the Supreme Court to respond with finality how they would answer the MR. Kasi pending pa yung MR in before the Supreme Court, the one filed. So again, all of this could be hypothetical, no, sinasabi mo, but that's the thing that we need to avoid, no? If we are to entangle ourselves with too many, two different impeachment complaints that actually targeted the two highest officials in our land. So, kaya sinasabi po namin, if there are complaints, then it should be verified and substantiated with proof. Kasi mahirap naman po talaga na mag-allege without even presenting an iota of evidences.
Right.
Yeah, we spoke, Kong, to Congressman Terry Ridon also, I think that was last week, talking about yung impeachment ni Vice President, no? Kasi alam naman natin we're waiting for the MR yet, and medyo matagal, pero ang iniiwasan daw kasi na if walang MR by the 6th, baka daw may mga groups who just want to file a complaint just to trigger the ban again. Ano po ang ginagawa ngayon ng mga certain groups with regards to a second possible complaint kay VP Sara? Meron bang naririnig kayo, Kong?
So far, wala pa. No? Apart from the interview, I guess, from one of the minority members say magpa-file nga sila. In fact, si Congressman, my good friend Terry Dodon, is member of the minority, and he also made mention about that. So hindi ko lang alam kasi hindi na pag-uusapan dyan. I think tama po yung sinabi nyo kanina kasi yung mga pag-file ng impeachment complaint, that could also be used as a strategy.
Yes.
No? Magpa-file ng impeachment complaint na hindi naman substantiated by evidences para lang ma-prohibit yung legitimate na verified complaint na ifa-file ng sino man o anumang grupo na yan. So that could also be used as a tactic, no, in order to prevent the more legitimate and valid impeachment complaint. So far, to go back to your question, wala pa naman na pag-uusapan. These are all rumors that came out from from the outside. So we're just surprised why such talks have already dominated our public discourse. No, but then again, as to the vice president, I guess the minority at the Makabayan bloc already came out with their position that once the 1 year ban is over, then they might probably be filing another impeachment complaint. But let's cross the bridge when we get
Yes.
there. Of course, definitely we would have to look at the evidences as the substantive merits of the filing of the complaints that they will be filing.
So Kong, it's sufficient to say na as of now, ang stance po ninyo lahat is hintay muna natin kung ano yung sasabihin ng Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the MR is concerned,
Yes.
yeah, we're still waiting kasi we still have few more weeks, no?
Yes, that's right.
Before the MR actually lapses. So, antayin po natin yon kung anong mangyayari. But I hope that all of this discussion about, because tama naman, we do agree that there has to be transparency and accountability. So, to hold all officials to account. But sabi ko nga, the impeachment process should be the last recourse. No?
That's right.
This is a sacred duty given to us by the Constitution. So it should not be bastardized or trivialized by mere filing of a complaint just because some political partisan groups would like to use this as a strategy to prevent legitimate and valid impeachment to hold public officers to account.
Well, going back po dun sa pagfa-file ng impeachment complaints against VP Sara, do you think, kung before na consolidate ng lower house yung mga complaints, di ba kasi ang dami po nun tapos parang inantay pa po nung Secretary General, ay hindi po tayo abot sa ganito na inaantay natin yung desisyon ng Supreme Court? Do you think that's
Yeah.
even possible?
I'll just give you the timeline. Let's go back to the timeline. The first complaint that was filed by by individual group, was filed during the break. And secondly, the second complaint was also filed during the break. And the third filing of the complaint was done after when we resumed. Now, meron kasing under the rules 10 session days for these complaints to be referred to the Committee on Justice. And that's exactly how, when, and where the question of the word initiation
Yes.
begin and starts to be questioned by virtue of a petition. So actually, ang position kasi ng former Secretary General namin at the time, kasi marami na talagang ready na document na for complaint. They're just waiting for any members who would like to support that, to endorse that. So ang ginawa kasi ng Secretary General namin is that kung halimbawa, yung first complaint ang itatakal doon sa Committee on Justice with depending two other complaints by different groups, would that also prevent these two ethics complaints be tackled in the Committee on Justice? It would also cause us legal issue. Should, for example, the first complaint was already referred to, despite the fact that we were still under recess. So yun ang naging position. That's why nung pag-resume natin, kasi may 3 modes yan, pag-resume natin sa House of Representatives, all the more than one-third members already acted like a petitioners. The complainants. We were all the complainants when we affixed our signature to have the verified impeachment complaints directly approved by the House of Representatives, because these are 3 modes.
That's right.
That's why one of the issues in the MR is that sinabi kasi ng Supreme Court dapat bigyan ng due process.
Yes.
Hindi nagpitin yan. So you have to notify first itong officer na to na impeach mo. Would that also mean that we will abandon the constitutional requirement or the one of the modes as specified by the Constitution, which is the 1/3 vote can go directly to the plenary?
Yes, that's right.
Do we now abandon that? Yun ang question namin since we are supplying or providing additional requirement for the House to go about with the process of impeachment, would that also mean na hindi na natin magagamit yung third mode,
Yung third
which is
Yeah.
one vote? Because dun sa third mode na yun, diretso ka na pupunta sa plenary, no? Provided that you have secured more than 1/3 of the membership na sila mismo ang acting like complainants. Yung idalawa kasi, direct member ang magko-complain, yung pangalawa, individual private citizen na endorso
Yes.
nung membro ng House of Representatives.
So-
Which in this case, I guess, yung kay Congressman Irice, gusto nilang, yung second mode, gusto nilang endorse si Congressman Irice. To be fair, ayaw naman din
Ayaw
endorse.
naman niya, oo. Oo.
So does that mean kasi kung I'm trying to understand also yung mga iba, no, kung hindi na consolidate yung impeachment complaint from the Secretary General pa lang, and let's say yung pangatlong complaint ang idala sa plenary, pwede po ba yun na i-bypass yung unang dalawa, yung pangatlo ang ipuput to a vote? Or what happens if the first, second, and third are put to plenary tapos na-reject yung unang dalawa? Does it mean triggered na yung one-year ban?
Yeah, actually, Angelo, yung in the case we're talking about the 19th Congress,
Yeah.
yung 3 complaints were not actually abandoned.
Okay.
It was just the members of the House have already acted as complainants. So, hindi na siya napag-usapan because it's moot and academic. Yung more than 200 plus na membro ng House of Representatives ang nag-push at nagpupirma na sila yung complainant for the verified impeachment complaint. So there was no abandonment, there was no rejection.
Okay.
It's just that we made use of the third mode.
The third
under-
mode, which is yun nga yung
One-third vote.
one-third
Yeah.
vote. Oo.
Oo.
Pero kung what will be the or how will the statement of Madriaga, the so-called bagman of VP Sara daw, will play in this complaint? So parang nakikita daw kasi na isasama to sa panibagong evidence. Sama po ba yun? If ever there will be impeachment complaint.
Well, Angela, I cannot give you a direct answer because sa totoo lang, hindi ako privy doon sa mga testimony ni Madriaga. Nalaman ko lang kasi parang may nag-file ata sa ombudsman, I don't know, for the purpose of impeachment. But I wasn't really aware. I haven't, I wasn't kept track on the testimony and the movement of Madriaga's case. But hindi ko alam kung isasama nila because I guess it's from the minority bloc who also mentioned that and intimated that probably they would include the Madriaga case in the complaint. So hindi pa napag-usapan. Let's wait for them to lose their complaint once the one-year ban is lapses.
Okay.
I don't know exactly.
Tignan natin ang susunod na kabanata, ika nga. Pero, Kong, of course, you're here na rin. Is it okay if we ask you about yung usapin po ng budget, no? Tungkol nga po dun sa sinasabi na kumakalat na balita na ginagamit itong budget para daw po ma-push itong impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. Kayo po, in your own knowledge, may ganun ba?
Yung sinabi ni Senator Amy. Yeah, oo.
Masyadong fictional po yung ganung klaseng interpretasyon, sabi ko nga po, because the public has seen and watched the live stream, di ba? So to magkaiba po yan, hindi magkadugtong ang budget at saka impeachment process. Diba? So I think it's quite unfair for the working men and women who have sat in the BICAM and those lalong-lalo na yung nag-prepare nitong budget na ito to just accuse the entire process of maybe having a partisan influence to para naman sa impeachment ni VP Sara. It's not only unfair but it's also an insult to the intelligence of those members of the BICAM.
Who crafted the budget.
Yes. Wala naman kasi member naman siya ng BICAM. And ang Senado naman, member din ng BICAM. Hindi lang House of Representatives yan. So kaya nga sinasabi it's far-fetched and these are just political noise. So hindi lang unfair, pero nakaka-insulto sa yung sa trabaho, intelligence ng mga nakaupo. Hindi lang ng House of Representatives sa BICAM, but yung mismong mga colleagues niya dyan sa Senado.
Well, kasi sinasabi niya po yung budget natin ay hiding from different pork, especially giniling.
Soft pork.
Soft pork yung sinasabi niya. So your comment on that po?
I don't know kung paano yung sinabi yung giling-giling at saka yung paano niya yung ginawa.
Kung naman akong giling-giling. Iba yung giling-giling kong.
Ay, ba yung giling-giling? Sorry.
Giniling po tayo, giniling.
Giniling na baboy daw ko.
Kasi ako Tagalog eh. But anyway, ako kasi, I always assume, yung sinabi nilang assumption of presumption of regularity. So I always have the confidence on the ability and the wise decision of the members of the BICAM. Yung pinag-usapan naman talaga nila doon ay line items. Nakita naman ng taong bayan kung paano napag-usapan starting from the committee deliberation up to the plenary. I'm sorry, up to the BICAM. So ako, the presumption of regularity, I still maintain my optimism that what they have discussed during the bicameral conference were actually the result of all of the clamor from the public na maging transparent, maging responsive, na hindi lang permissive but maging responsive at the same time yung gagawing budget for 2026. So let's allow her na lang to substantiate her claim kung paano giniling or giniling-giling yung budget niya.
Pero ano ko lang to, kung alam niyo na po itong bagong statement ni Secretary Vince Dizon ng DPWH saying na no more allocables ngayon, no? So parang they're presenting a new budget planning reforms, no, na wala nang allocables kundi ang magiging sistema based on the needs ng lugar, no, ng distrito. Tas lahat daw dapat merong plano na, lahat may project na dapat endorse ng development councils, at saka uunahin daw ng bibigyan ng pondo yung para sa may mga completions na ongoing projects. Have you seen that already?
Nakita ko yung press briefing ni Secretary Vince. Pero kung ito naman I think under the status quo, this has been the policy. Kasi lahat naman ng mga proyekto sa bawat distrito, kaya nga may National Expenditure Program tayo, submit sa House. Kasi ang mga nagre-reflect doon ng mga line items these are all verified, these are all assessed by the regional offices of each departments, no, sa kanilang mga line agency, sa kanilang mga outposts sa mga regional sa mga region, no. So nabi-verify naman ito as far as the infrastructure is concerned. That's why pag may NEP, talaga makikita mo doon ano yung mga multi-year na ini-implement, ano yung mga ongoing, ano yung mga natapos na, ano yung kailangan ng maintenance, anong kailangan ng rehabilitation, because these are all part of how they would prepare their budget. So if there are additional guidelines in order to make sure na maganda yung implementation apart from implementation but reflective doon sa pangangailangan ng community, mas advantage yun, lalo na sa amin, sa far-flung areas. Because that would also give us, for the national government to really look into the real situation and the need of our districts, no, of our areas. Hindi lang siya maging centered doon sa highly urbanized area. What we need here in the rural areas are more development, infrastructure development. So that would be advantageous on the part of those who are really in need of programs and projects from the central government, from the national government.
Well,
Wala na kami makikitang allocables sa mga proponents.
Well, speaking of projects, Kong, kasi yung isang issue, sabi nila, okay, importante po yung binabantayan yung proseso ng pagbabudget, pero importante din po daw sa ground level yung sa oversight sa implementation, no? And yung isang option daw dyan is yung ICI, parang yung lalagyan ng ngipin o yung gagawin sa batas, or sa ang suggestion ni Congressman Redon when we talk to him, stronger oversight from Congress na lang daw muna kaysa enacting something into law na ang dami-dami na daw batas. Ano po yung take nyo dito?
Iiwasan talaga natin na yung overlaying of bureaucratic processes kasi yun ang nandi-delay sa hindi lang doon sa assessment but even yung actual result ng investigation. Pag sobrang dami kasi nag-iimbestiga, talaga magkaka-confuse yung taong bayan. May special provision kasi sa GAA to monitor the implementation of infra projects. In 2026 GAA, may special provision sila dyan. On top of the already given mandate of all of the committee, no? In the case of the House of Representatives, may public accounts tayo dyan. So we would meron talagang oversight function ng Kongreso. So pwedeng anytime mag-call ng investigation as to the issuances of releases, basta anything about public utilization, talagang
Okay.
papasok yan ng public account. So I think that's what Congressman Redon is saying.
Yeah.
Pero alam ko meron ding special provision dyan sa GAA na magkakaroon ng oversight committee, monitoring committee to assess, monitor yung mga implementation ng proyekto in 2026. So ang akin lang, ang position ko lang talaga doon ay kung meron ng inherent power ang House of Representatives and sa Senate, sa Kongreso, to conduct investigation at nakita naman natin may mga investigasyon na nangyayari. So maganda na ituloy-tuloy na rin yon, no? Pero yung sinasabi nilang to institutionalize as a state policy, as a matter of state policy itong ICC, I think mayroon tayong legal under the status quo po pwede namang magkaroon. It's not the matter of filing, it's the certainty that there will be people who will be charged.
Yeah.
Ang talagang issue dito. We have all the laws, we have all the legal avenues to run after public officers who are implicated with corruption, etc. But filing is one thing. The certainty that there will be people who will actually be put behind bars is the real question by the people. So yun ang tingnan natin, no? Yun ang dapat nating i-focus.
Well, as the Congress will resume po, no, kailan po ba ang pagbabalik ng session po ninyo? Ano po yung mga priority na i-discuss po ninyo for legislation?
Magre-resume po ang Kongreso sa June 26.
Yun.
So ako po ay chairman ng electoral reform. So isa po sa pag-uusapan natin dyan sa committee ay yung naitala na prioridad ng under sa LEDAC, itong Reform Party List Act, pati yung anti-political dynasty. Alam kong excited kayo dyan sa mga topics.
Yes.
So yeah, those are the two things among other priority legislations that will be tackled by the House once we resume the session.
Isundot ko lang ko nga, yung FOI, ano na balita sa FOI? Parang isang dekada na ata yun ko nga.
Nasa committee na yan, nandun na rin po, meron na rin pong siyang batas, panukalang batas, na napag-uusapan na po yan sa Committee on Public Information. So ang committee po ng electoral reform, yan po yung na-mention po na dalawa na prioridad ng sa LEDAC na pag-usapan po natin. And ang sa House of Representatives, ang House leadership naman ay nag-file naman sila ng kanilang version. So we can safely assume that will also be priority of the House leadership.
Okay.
Well, yun na lang antayin natin, yung talagang definition ng
Dynasty.
Yun talaga inaantay natin. Pero kung before we let you go, mabalik lang po ako sa impeachment. Ano po ba talaga yung sentiment ng Kongreso, as you would know, na doon sa tungkol sa mga impeachment complaints na naririnig natin against the President and against the Vice President?
Sa ngayon, wala pa, we cannot, I don't have the direct answer kasi hindi pa talaga napag-usapan yan. Pag nag-resume po tayo, doon natin malalaman, Angela. So sa ngayon, wala pa. These are all issues, these are all concerns na lumalabas na pagpalagay ko naman, pag nag-resume ang House of Representatives, ay pag-uusapan naman din yan.
Oh, kasi alam naman natin, numbers game yan ang impeachment.
Oh yeah, of course.
complaint,
Yung
diba?
impeachment kasi sui generis yan, one of its
Yes.
kind. It's a combination of legal and political exercise. So, tingnan natin.
Well,
All right, thank you for
Thank
your
you po.
time. Lanao del Sur 1st District Representative Zia Alonto Adyong for joining us.
good morning.
Happy New Year!
Happy New Year, ko.
Now, Senator Ping Lacson alleged that Senator Amy Marcos had 2.5 billion pesos in allocables in the 2025 National Expenditure Program. Lacson criticized Marcos for her silence on supposed giniling or pork when the 2026 budget bill was being tackled at the bicameral conference level. He also hit Marcos for her criticisms of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee, particularly regarding the flood control investigation. In response, Marcos dismissed the allegations as laughable, saying the allocations were part of the DPWH Central Office's wish list. She added that none of the funds had actually been released.
Two Bureau of Fire Protection officials are under investigation over an alleged 30 million peso kickback scheme. Interior Secretary John Vic Remulla said the officials assigned to the National Capital Region have been dismissed following reports of irregularities in the procurement of fire extinguishers. He also flagged practices such as overpricing and forcing businesses to hire preferred contractors in exchange for commissions. To curb abuses, Remulla said the DILG will require fire safety inspectors to wear body-worn cameras as part of tighter oversight measures.
Now, Public Works Secretary Vince Dizon held a press conference earlier today. For the details, let's bring in Mobile Journal, Arles de los Santos. Arles, anong balita dyan?
Angela, Diego, ngayong araw nga nagsagawa ang DPWH ng press conference para sa plano nito ngayong 2026. At kasama nga dyan sa mga inanunsyo ni Secretary Vince Dizon ang pag-alis na ng mga tinatawag na allocables o yung mga discretionary funds para sa bawat distrito. Ayon kay Dizon, dito raw kasi nung nagsisimula yung puno at dulo ng mga problema ng ahensya patungkol sa korupsyon. Nandito daw nakikita yung palakasan at pagpapasok ng mga proyekto na wala namang plano at hindi dumaan sa mga regional at provincial development councils. Kaya naman daw kung sino yung makapangyarihan o may mga koneksyon, ito daw yung mga nauuna at nagkakaroon ng pinakamalalaking mga pondo. Kaya naman sa bagong plano, nais nila na dapat nakaayon sa pangangailangan ng bawat distrito yung budget na makapupunta dito. Hindi na yung kung sino yung may pinakamalaki. At kung matatandaan man ninyo na si DPWH, dating DPWH Undersecretary Catalina Cabral lamang daw yung nakakaalam ng formula ng allocables nito na kung saan bilyong-bilyong piso din ang pinag-uusapan na halaga. Bukod pa dyan, dapat daw na talagang dumaan doon sa tamang proseso, though mauuna pa din sa budget ng DPWH yung mga ongoing na infrastructure projects nito. Pero kabukod doon sa reforma sa budget, meron pang ibang mga proyekto at unahin itong DPWH. No? Kasama na dyan yung pag-aayos ng iba pang mga infrastructure projects. Kagaya na lamang ng repair sa Maharlika Highway na kung saan kilo-kilometro daw ang haba nito mula Hilaga ng Luzon hanggang sa Mindanao at mula nang naayos ito mga around 1970s to 80s, 40 years na mahigit, no, hindi pa daw ito nagkaroon ng any major rehab. Kaya kasama yan sa plano ng DPWH at yung iba pang mga kalsada at mga tulay at mga school or classrooms din, no, para nga maayos talaga. Binigyan din nilang linaw, Angela, yung bagaman maliit na daw yung pondo na tapyasan, no, DPWH will make do of what it has para nga masiguro na gumugulong pa din at nagagampanan nito ang responsibilidad sa bansa.
Well, Arles, ang nakikita kong crucial dito ngayon doon sa sinasabi nilang bagong budget planning reform sa pinakita nila or budget monitoring ay regional and provincial development councils kasi dito lahat dadaan sa kanila ngayon. So, we have to make sure naman na itong miyembro nitong regional and provincial development councils ay incorruptible na hindi po pwedeng pakiusapan, di ba, Arles?
Tama ka dyan, Angela. At kaugnay nga niyan, yung bago kasi pumunta sa Regional Development Council, so yung mga LGU, parang nag-iipon-ipon sila ng mga plano, di ba? At then ibibigay bilang suhestyon sa kanilang mga development council, no? Kaya naman inalis na din ni Secretary Vince Dizon yung ilan sa mga DPWH officials, no, sa iba't ibang mga rehiyon. Kasama dyan yung mga assistant district engineer at mga district engineer at papalitan ito ng mga bagong mukha para nga masiguro na nagtutuloy-tuloy yung reforma sa DPWH dahil kasama din sa mga ito, mga personalidad na ito, ay may mga ongoing cases o iniimbestigahan. So para daw hindi magkaroon ng problema, link na din siguro ito doon nga sa Regional Development Council dahil sila yung nagpapasok sa NEP bago dumaan sa GAB at maging GAA ang budget ng ahensya.
Can you also give us an update doon sa si Secretary Vince Dizon daw kasi is set to testify before the Sandigan Bayan para nga dito sa kaso against of course doon sa flood control mess in Oriental Mindoro?
Binigyan niya tayo dyan, Angela, ng date, no? Ito ngayon sa January 20, 2026. And yung Sandigan Bayan 6th Division, if we're not mistaken, yung hahawak nitong kaso. Though may mga tanong at kailangan pang paglilinaw kasi parang may mga motion yung defense ni Zaldico, no? Ito kasi yung kaugnay doon sa kaso na ito na hindi daw dapat si Dizon yung humarap, no? Pero at least as per Dizon, confirmed naman na yung kanyang pagharap sa January 20, kailangan na lamang hintayin kung ano yung papayagan ba tayo makasama sa loob at kung paano nga ba ibibigay niya yung affidavit niya sa kanyang pagharap sa Sandigan Bayan.
Alright, sige. Maraming salamat sa iyong ulat. That was our mobile journal, Arles de los Santos. We'll be back with more stories after the break. Keep it here on Mo News. Good morning. You're still watching News and Views here on One News. Search, rescue, and retrieval operations continue in Cebu City after a massive landfill collapsed. Here's a report.
This footage captures the exact moment a massive landfill collapsed in Barangay Binalo, Cebu City on Thursday, January 8. A waste facility at the base of the landfill was buried in seconds. Employees inside had no chance to escape. Rescuers are seen in this video recovering the body of one of the victims from the landslide site. Authorities say the death toll has now climbed to 6. Among those lost is Rowena, whose husband Mang Ranido is left devastated by her death. He told News 5 that Rowena was still alive when rescuers first located her, but she was pinned down by debris, making rescue efforts extremely difficult. It took nearly a full day to retrieve her.
Sinabihan ko kasi ito, kanang matutulog kami. Kupi, in-silver wedding anniversary natin, 25 years. Mag-ipon ako. Pagkasalan kita ulit. Tatawa siya. Kung huwag kang tumawa, yan ang pangako ko sa iyo. Dahil mahal na mahal kita.
Rowena's brother Lloyd, who was also caught in the landslide, remains missing. According to his partner Evangeline, she is preparing herself for the possibility that her loved one may no longer be found alive.
Sobrang sakit po. Hindi ko alam kung kailan ako makaka-recover. Siguro makaka-recover din ako, pero pag yung anak ko, pag nahanap sa tatay niya, sobrang sakit.
Search, rescue, and retrieval operations continue, with more than 30 people still missing.
After a record-breaking 31-hour traslasyon, the leadership of the Minor Basilica and National Shrine of the Black Nazarene vowed to implement changes to the Feast of the Jesus Nazareno. Here is the report.
After nearly 31 hours, the revered 400-year-old statue of the Black Nazarene was returned to the Minor Basilica and National Shrine of Jesus Nazareno on Saturday, January 10. The traslasyon began around 4 a.m. on Friday and concluded at 10:49 a.m. on Saturday, marking the longest procession in history. According to Quiapo Church management, at least 9.6 million devotees joined the procession and related activities. Father Robert Arellano, spokesman for Nazareno 2026 and parochial vicar of Quiapo Church, said crowds of devotees trying to get close to the andas slowed its progress. At least 3 people died during the celebration, while the death of photographer Ito Son was not directly related to the procession. In addition, 1,057 devotees sustained injuries.
We don't disregard the physical welfare of people. Yun eh. Alam mo, it's a very beautiful spiritual exercise. You are able to express your faith in God and devotion to God. But mind you, God is also after the welfare of our body, our physical body. Gift din ng Panginoon yan.
The church vowed to implement changes in the future celebrations to improve safety and enhance the overall experience of the Feast of Jesus Nazareno.
Actually, every time na nagtatranslasyon, laging pumapasok sa aming mga planning yung pagbabago ng ruta. Kaya lang hindi ito isang mabilis pagdesisyonan. At hindi lang naman kasi ang Quiapo Church ang nagdidesisyon dito. Kasama natin yung ating local government together with our interagencies partners.
For News 5, Ian Suyu, we are One News.
TVOX cautioned that the ongoing eruptive activity of Mayon volcano may persist for months. Here's the report.
Ala! Oh, Jesus! Nakulo na!
What appeared like a surge of thick smoke rolling down the slopes of Mayon volcano alarmed residents of Barangay Lidong in the town of Santo Domingo, Albay over the weekend. The area falls within the 7-kilometer extended danger zone from the volcano's crater, which means evacuation is not yet mandatory. Still, fear was evident among residents as they watched from a distance. FIVOX clarified that what residents saw was not just a simple ash cloud.
Ito yung tinatawag nating pyroclastic density current or yung dito sa Bicol ang tawag nila uson. Made up yan ng mga yung mga mainit na bato, tipak-tipak na bato, may mga kasamang yung abo.
FIVOX added that the Uson should serve as a warning to evacuees not to return yet to the 6-kilometer permanent danger zone.
Ito yung mga actually sila yung nagko-cause ng mga casualties tuwing mayroong eruption ang Mayon volcano. Mainit po yan at yung mga yung mga volcanic gases, no. So napakainit po niyan. Minsan nasa halos 300 degrees Celsius, 600 degrees Celsius. At napakabilis. Kung nakita niyo naman yung video.
In Santo Domingo, preparations are already underway at this vacant lot, which could serve as a temporary evacuation site should Mayon be raised to alert level 4 or 5. This would mean the evacuation of around 79,000 residents living within the 7 to 8 kilometer extended danger zone. Residents from Barangay Lidong and San Isidro have begun working together to clear the area where tents and makeshift shelters may be set up.
Ang una po, sa school po muna sila i-evacuate ng 15 days. Habang po nandoon sa school, saka po sila gagawa ng mga shanties. In preparation po ito na ginagawa, nililinis po muna, saka kung halimbawa man magtaas ang level ng Mayon volcano.
Mayon volcano continues to show signs of activity, with FIVOX confirming the presence of new magma rising into its crater. FIVOX says Mayon's eruptive activity could last up to 6 months. Volcanologists are currently considering 3 possible scenarios. The first is similar to the 2020-2023 activity, where Mayon experienced quiet lava effusion.
Ang susunod na senaryo, yung maaring bumibuelo lang or parang introduction pa lang ito ng mas aktibong phase ng eruption ng Mayon volcano. Maaring mag-progress ito sa halimbawa ay yung 2018 style na eruption.
The third scenario, which is the worst case, would be a major explosive eruption like those in 2000 and 1814 that destroyed the Kagsawa Church. But according to FIVOX, the chances of this happening remain low. For News 5, Gio Robles, we are One News.
And for the latest on the situation in Albay amid Mount Mayon's unrest, we have Governor Noel Rosal. Good morning, Gov. Welcome back to the show.
Hello.
Gov.
Magandang umaga po.
All right, Gov. Thank you for joining us again. No, mula na nag-usap po tayo.
Thank you also for having me. Salamat also for having me today.
So Gov, simulan po natin. Kamusta na po ang mga residenteng na inilikas?
So far sa ngayon po, steady tayo. Yung 6-kilometer danger zone, nandyan po yung almost 900 families natin.
Okay.
Almost 3,400 plus din. Na-maintain naman natin, especially yung mga pangailangan nila sa pagkain, tubig, medisina, siyempre yung kanilang mga sleeping kit, saka hygiene kit. Nagbigay po ang DSWD, salamat. Through the DSWD, pinabigay po ng Pangulo. Tuwang-tuwa po yung ating mga kababayan.
Gov, sabi ng FIVOX po kasi yung activity nitong Mayon volcano could last up to 6 months. So prepared po ba tayo in case na lumawak po yung danger zone at tumagal po ito?
Although mabigat yan, mabigat dahil 6 months, pero kakayanin natin, siyempre.
So paano po magiging ang relocation ng mga, will they stay in the evacuation center?
May available naman tayo.
Gov? Oo, nawala.
Nawala signal, oo.
Baka probably mahirap din yung signal doon.
Yes,
of course, sabi kasi ng FIVOX, kung pagbabatayan,
possible, 6
yung
months.
unrest nung 2023, possible 6 months ulit. Kumbaga 6 months yung unrest would last would last up to 6 months.
That's why we wanted to ask si Gov, no, if they're prepared kasi medyo mahaba-habang period ito that they have to, well, that's food, that's shelter, that's water, di ba, medicine.
And of course, yung livelihood ng mga affected families, di ba? Most of the families there, ang trabaho ay farming.
Yes.
So, well, sabi naman ng ng local government nila with the help of Department of Agriculture, they'll be giving livelihood assistance.
That's right. That's right.
So, yung mga training, ganyan paano habang hindi pa nila magawa talaga yung farming na trabaho nila because of this unrest nga nangyayari sa Moyon Volcano.
Oh, kasi ang daming factors to take into consideration. No? Hindi lang yung actual immediate ayuda ang titignan mo, but yung total impact on, sinasabi mo, livelihood. In the meantime, anong work pwede nilang gawin para kumikita pa rin yung mga families na ito? Di ba? Will they stay in the evacuation center or will there finally be a temporary shelter already that they could call their home para medyo settled down sila?
At saka, babantayan natin yung sinabi rin, of course, si Governor Rosal kasi mga ilang beses ko na rin siya nakausap here and of course sa One Balita Pilipinas. And he's been saying na naiintindihan niya yung pinopoint ko sa kanya about yung mga residenteng, mga evacuees, no, na lagi na lang ba sila i-evacuate. So sabi niya ganun sa pagbabalik niya kasi nagbalik siya ulit, no, from yung term niya.
That's
na
right.
talagang ang sabi niya ay gagawa na sila ng plano na magkaroon ng permanent, diba? Yung resettlement ng mga bangunan dito, yung mga residente.
Given that we know that Mayon is active.
Yes, kasi dapat doon, even FIVOC sinasabi nila, doon sa permanent danger zone, dapat wala na talagang tao doon.
Well, it looks like hindi natin mabalikan si Gov. Alam naman natin
sa signal.
Problema sa signal. But anyway, thank you for
Gov, bukas na lang ulit.
Thank you for his brief time kay Governor Noel Rosal. Alright, mamamayang Liberal Party List. Wait lang. Ayun, mamamayang Liberal Party List Representative Laila De Lima has taken offense at remarks comparing her Senate absences to other lawmakers. De Lima said her non-attendance during her term as senator was involuntary, as she was detained at the time over charges later dismissed. She said the comparison with Senator Ronald De La Rosa and former Senator Antonio Trillanes was misplaced, stressing she continued to perform legislative work despite detention, even sought to join Senate sessions remotely.
Iba naman talaga.
Iba naman talaga kasi wala naman choice si Congresswoman.
Actually, humarap siya, di ba, doon sa cases na pinupukol sa kanya.
Hindi siya tumakbo.
Tapos nakulong siya.
Hindi siya tumakbo, hindi siya nagtago. And she was detained and later on this...
To be fair, hindi naman daw nagtatago si Senator Bato de la Rosa according to his lawyer, attorney Torion.
O pati nagtatrabaho?
Hindi ko alam.
Di ba tayo nagpapasweldo sa mga lawmaker na yan?
Hindi natin alam.
So as nagsisweldo sa kanila, we demand to know kailan ka papasok. Di ba? Anyway, don't go away because we're not done yet. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching News and Views here on One News.
The Department of Education is reviewing its classroom observation policy following the death of a public school teacher in Muntinlupa, although it clarified that the incident is not directly linked to classroom observation practices. Mobile journalist Ray Vicente reports.
Following the death of the public school teacher in Muntinlupa last week, the Department of Education said that classroom observation policy is now under review. In a Facebook post on Sunday, January 11, Education Secretary Sonny Angara said they are actively reforming these practices, but noting to not fully suspend the classroom observation. However, various groups like Teachers Dignity Coalition echoed for a temporary halt instead as a symbol of mourning.
Hindi naman namin totally gustong alisin yung classroom observation. Ang gusto lamang naman naming baguhin is how it is being implemented in the field. We have actually formalized this request na kung maaari ihinto muna yung lahat ng classroom observations sa buong Pilipinas, hindi lamang sa Muntinlupa, no? As symbol, no, of sympathy, no, or mourning, no, dito sa nangyari sa ating isang kapatid po namin.
Teacher Agnes Buenaflor was reported to felt dizziness and collapsing in the middle of her classroom observation in front of 2 observers.
Ay, relax naman to kasi yung dalawang observers niya, yung head teacher at saka itong master teacher ay mga personal friends niya. So hindi naman to masyado siguro, no? Hindi naman siguro masyadong factor, I would say, yung nag-observe, di ba? But of course, yung mga teacher naman usually, no, yung mga teacher natin, ayaw naman natin kasi hindi lang ito mairaos lang. Makikita niyo yung aming Facebook page, no, nag-share yung mga teacher natin nung kanilang mga comments doon na talaga namang stressful, talagang addition sa kanilang trabaho.
Although DepEd clarified that the DepEd do not tolerate the classroom observation practices, TDC chairperson still pushes for a policy review.
Hindi namin sinisisi yung mga principal o yung mga head teachers or even yung ating mga master teachers na policy shift, not policy review ang hinihingi namin. Nakatali yung kamay ng ating mga principal, ng head teachers at saka ng mga master teachers, no, dito po sa policy na ito.
The call is also due to the similar case from a teacher in Laguna who was preparing for classroom observation the next day.
I would say meron siyang pagkakapareho. Ito namang si Teacher ER, babanggitin ko yung pangalan, nakapost naman sa public. No? Si Teacher ER dyan ay preparing. Na-stroke siya nung Thursday evening. No? Na supposedly, he's preparing for classroom observation nung Friday. Ngayon, nandyan, nasa ICU ng isang ospital sa San Pedro City. No? At teacher siya sa Santa Cruz, Laguna. Yan din naman yung tanong ko, no, doon sa kanyang sister who is also a teacher, no, kasi ayaw ko namang magsabi, no, na ito ay assumption lamang namin, no, pero kinonfirm niya, no, na yun yung kanilang paniwala.
Kapatid Ray Vicente, we are One News.
Rains are expected over several areas in the country. Shear line is affecting the eastern sections of northern and central Luzon. Scattered rains are possible over Cagayan, Isabela, Aurora, and Quezon. Northeast monsoon or amihan, meanwhile, is bringing light or isolated rains. Affected areas include northern and central Luzon as well as Metro Manila. The rest of the country may also expect rains due to easterlies.
In sports, Alex Ayala is set to compete in the Kuyong Classic in Melbourne from January 13 to 15 as her final tune-up before her main draw debut at the Australian Open. The 20-year-old Filipina recently made it to the semi-finals of ASB Classic in New Zealand and rose to a career-high number 49 in the WTA rankings after the tournament. Ayala is one of 4 players listed so far for the exclusive invitation-only Kuyong Classic. Joining her are 2024 Wimbledon semi-finalist Donna Vekic of Croatia, Australian Priscilla Hon, and 42-year-old Slovak veteran Daniela Hantuchova.
State wins by Ginebra and TNT have set the stage for high-stakes Game 5s in the PBA Philippine Cup semifinals. Mobile Journal Denise Valdez Sancho with the report.
Barangay Ginebra, San Miguel, and TNT Tropang 5G both made strong statements Sunday, setting up high-stakes Game 5s in the PBA Season 50 Philippine Cup semifinals. Scotty Thompson put on a complete all-around show as Ginebra pulled even with San Miguel Beer 105-91 in Game 4 at the Mall of Asia Arena. Thompson stuffed the stat sheet with 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists, powering the Gin Kings to a 2-all deadlock and turning the series into a best-of-3.
I don't know. I didn't even know that Scotty was putting that kind of numbers up. You know, we're just trying to figure out a way to win. It was a quiet triple-double in my mind. I don't know. Maybe the fans knew it was going on, but I didn't know it was going on. He was really just all over the court, and you know, we moved the ball so much better today, made their defense work.
Ginebra now eyes the upper hand in Game 5 set for Wednesday night, 7:30 at the Araneta Coliseum. Meanwhile, TNT Tropang 5G took a step closer to the finals after dominating Meralco 102-83 to grab a 3-1 series lead. Hoy Adams stepped up big, pouring in 27 points on near-perfect shooting, along with 9 rebounds and 6 assists as TNT overcame injury and illness issues in its lineup.
There's no secret that we got a break because Chris Newsom didn't play. But the same thing happened to us. We also lost Roger in the first quarter. That kind of evened it out, and that became our focus. And so I said, without a Roger, the only way we're going to win this game is with our defense. And I think that's what we did.
TNT can seal the deal in Game 5 Wednesday at 5:15 p.m., also at the Araneta Coliseum. Kapatid Denise Valdesancho, we are One News.
Alright, and that wraps up today's episode of News and Views.
Join us again tomorrow. I'm Angela Lagunsad Castro.
And I'm Angelo Castro III, kapatid, we are One News.
All sides, all the time.